Video game movies. They're not trash anymore, especially by box office standards. The past few years have given us TV and film adaptations of video games that have broken through to mainstream audiences and have garnered praise from critics, which is a new experience if you grew up during the dark age of video game movies like I did, starting with Super Mario Bros. Back in 1993, which isn't a good movie, but there's some fun stuff in there. We can all agree on that, right? Yeah.
Name? Mario. Last name? Mario.
And while there were a few gems hidden in the dirt, Silent Hill, 1993 to 2019 was filled with plenty of truly awful attempts at adapting video games onto the big screen. Not every video game movie that comes out now is stellar, but we're definitely miles away from the Uwe Boll era of cinema.
Why? Why? They always ask why.
Is he still fighting people who make fun of him? But the 90s are back. Not when it comes to the economy or the quality of textiles or the relevance of Chris Gaines, but with video game movies for sure. The Sonic trilogy is huge, which proves that bullying works. The animated Mario Bros. Movie was a terrifying success. There was the Mortal Kombat remake a couple years ago that people liked enough to earn it a sequel. There's also a new Resident Evil movie in the works, as well as a new Street Fighter film coming in October of 2026, which I'm using as a flimsy excuse to talk about a film I truly love. A movie that's a destructive combination of gigantic egos, reckless drug abuse, military coups, and a script that was written in just one night.
Street Fighter.
Welcome to Film Gone Wrong, a show about movies that should have been big, but something went wrong along the way. I was exaggerating a little bit when I said that the script was written in just one night. It was the first draft of the script that was written in one night. I wasn't exaggerating at all though when I said I love this movie. To prove it, I brought this from home. That doesn't mean I think it's perfect. It's a movie constructed out of nothing but flawed creative steps at every turn, which is part of its charm. At least for me. And with a new Street Fighter movie cruising our way next year, boasting an absolutely insane cast, I wanted to shine some light on the video game movie that kind of helped start it all. And also talk about the extremely chaotic and bonkers production history behind the film. You're going to be hearing the word cocaine a bunch of times. Our sources for this video will be the film itself, of course, interviews with the cast and crew, as well as writer/director Steven E. D'Souza, along with the film's commentary, deleted scenes, and making of featurettes, which you can find on the limited edition Blu-ray release from 88 Films. Again, I love this movie. And I'll also be citing Keith Stewart's fantastic piece from The Guardian, I Punched Him So Hard He Cried, inside Street Fighter the movie. I'm of course going to be digging into the plot of this 31-year-old movie, so if you're watching this video but you haven't seen the sloppy masterpiece that is 1994 Street Fighter, here's your spoiler warning.
Quick! Change the channel!
Great joke. Fantastic joke. In March of 1991, Street Fighter II hit arcades and Super Nintendo consoles and became a tremendous success in America pretty quickly. Capcom, the publisher behind Street Fighter, saw the potential of turning their game into a movie and sent a cadre of executives to Hollywood to start doing the legwork to get it made. Enter longtime Hollywood producer Edward R. Pressman. Big Ed also saw the potential of taking a colorful cast of characters and putting them up on the big screen, so he went to his Rolodex of writing talent. Ed Pressman is a name you might not know off the top of your head, but he was a producer behind some of the best films ever made. Terrence Malick's Badlands, Das Boot, Conan the Barbarian, True Stories, American Psycho, Judge Dredd.
You betray the law!
Pressman had his hand in all of those and dozens more, including Street Fighter. The Pressman got in touch with screenwriter Steven E. D'Souza, who also has an impressive string of scripting credits under his name, including 48 Hours, The Running Man, and a little holiday movie called Die Hard. D'Souza recounts his conversation with Pressman as such.
Look, I know this is really short notice, but I've got a meeting with these people from Capcom. They're meeting with everybody in town, looking for someone to produce the movie of this video game. You've had experience with this video game kind of things. Can you come up with a story for this? So I said, sure, I'm very familiar with the game. In fact, every weekend I'm down at the arcade with my kids dropping quarters in the machine. When do you need this? He said, I need it tomorrow.
According to D'Souza, he wrote the first draft of the script overnight to have it ready for a lunch meeting the following day. He also got Pressman's word that if Capcom went with his pitch, that he'd also direct the picture. To this day, the fact that Capcom agreed to this pitch at all leaves me with so many questions. Street Fighter, outside of its sometimes confusing lore, is a game about a global fighting tournament. The kind of thing that has been the subject of a good amount of movies. Enter the Dragon comes to mind, Kickboxer, Arena, and of course, Bloodsport. So you think that's where the script would draw inspiration from? Wrong.
Recently, we had Saddam Hussein in the first Gulf War, So I said, okay, it's a Saddam Hussein, Bison is like Saddam Hussein.
At that time, military thrillers were really popping off. Dad cinema was riding high. Stuff like Patriot Games, The Hunt for Red October, Under Siege, movies where an A-list actor is thwarting some type of major terrorist plot, or stopping a missile from launching, or dispatching a villain who is from somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Diplomatic community.
It's just been revoked.
It makes total sense that this was the script D'Souza would write up at this point of history, especially given his previous work. But Capcom was footing the whole bill for this movie, so why greenlight a martial arts movie that has barely any martial arts? No clue, but maybe we'll learn why at the end of the video. This is just speculation on my part, but one possible reason for this could be that during this time of the 90s, Japanese producers were trying to get some kind of foothold in the American movie business, unaware that a lot of the industry was run by flim-flam men and very untrustworthy people. I can't say with certainty if that happened on Street Fighter or not. For example, in 1989, Sony purchased Columbia Pictures from the Coca-Cola Company for a cool $3 billion as a way to get a slice of the fat money cake that American cinema was churning out. They then went and poached producers Peter Guber and John Peters from Warner Brothers to run it, oblivious to their reputation in Hollywood, it seems. There's a great book called Hit and Run about how Guber and Peters nearly destroyed Columbia at the time and swindled Sony out of a stupid amount of money. For context, John Peters was the guy who put the big metal spider in Wild Wild West. Some of Capcom's casting choices point towards the theory that they may have stepped into the deep end of the American movie machine. They wanted A-list actors for the lead roles of Colonel Guile and M. Bison. The initial names they threw around were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, big American action stars who were far too expensive for the $32 million budget Capcom was putting forward. So obviously the third choice to play a character who is so American he has the flag tattooed on both biceps was the muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme. A choice that puzzled D'Souza for obvious accent reasons.
After they said, we can't afford Harrison Ford, they said, how about Jean-Claude Van Damme? So he said, well, if he's playing, an American officer, there is that accent problem. And then the Capcom people said, what accent? And then, of course, I realized that Jean-Claude, like most American stars or international stars, is dubbed. So this argument was just lost on them. They got fixated on Jean-Claude as the biggest name they could afford.
And when it came to casting M. Bison, the original choice was going to be Stephen Lang, who probably would have done a great job. Dude absolutely crushes it playing a giant blue cat alien. The absolutely incredible Raul Julia would end up taking on the role thanks to the insistence of his kids who love the Street Fighter II video game.
Bison, that's the character I play. Bison is the king of the bad guys.
Having two big actors both coming off of big hits wasn't cheap though. Van Damme was paid $7 million for the role and Raul raked in a nice $3 million, chopping a hefty $10 million out of the budget right from the start. Another tremendous hurdle to clear was Capcom required that every character from the Street Fighter II roster was featured in the film, which meant having a cast of 14 people. That's so many characters to balance in a script. It's truly insane.
This movie, as opposed to a lot of other movies I've done, like Die Hard 1 and 2 and Lethal Weapon 2 and 3 and many other big action movies, this movie, the challenge in it is 7 or 8 or 9 different characters.
And that meant everybody. Guile, Bison, Ken, Ryu, Chun-Li, Balrog, Sagat, Zangief, Cammy, everyone, even Sawada. You know, everyone's favorite Street Fighter character. Sawada. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Production was scheduled for 10 weeks, 6 weeks in Thailand, and then 4 weeks in Australia at Warner Brothers Studios. Since the film was leaning more talky than punchy, D'Souza decided to go with teaching actors how to fight instead of hiring stunt actors for the roles, a choice that undoubtedly hamstrings the movie by about 1,000,000%. Jean-Claude Van Damme, of course, was a trained martial artist who would occasionally do his own stunts. Same goes for Chun-Li actor Ming-Na Wen, who we all love, as well as Byron Mann, who played Ryu, and since Street Fighter has been in his fair share of martial arts film and TV. Speaking of Byron Mann, Capcom wasn't super happy with his casting as Ryu. They wanted to go with Japanese actor Kenya Sawada, but he barely spoke English, so the character of Captain Sawada was created specifically for the movie. Most of his scenes were cut from the final film, but at least he got to be in the video game. That's pretty cool. During the early stages of shooting, D'Souza structured the shot list so the majority of the dialogue scenes would be in the first few weeks of production, so the cast could learn some basic stunt fighting from kickboxing legend Benny Urquidez. There he is. He's fought Jackie Chan like a dozen times. That's so good. Run that again. Great stuff. Unfortunately for Benny, nobody told him until halfway through production that each character had their own unique fighting styles. Bit of a whoopsie.
As we were filming, we found out, or maybe he found out, or somebody found out that, wait, these characters have very established fighting moves.
The entire production operated kind of like that. The scene where Ryu demonstrates his sword skills in the cage fight with Vega was taught to Byron Mann just minutes before filming by one of the Thai stunt performers, and was done with a real sword. It didn't help that shooting in Bangkok was going terribly right from the jump. They were filming in the middle of the rainy season, which caused their power grid to not work most of the time. They were shooting majority of their scenes in an old Coast Guard hangar that had a metal roof, which isn't great for recording sound, and it would heat up in these sweltering temperatures.
This building was so decrepit that there were so many holes in the wall that every scene you would film in there, it was like a John Woo movie where light is coming in the bullet holes.
The cast was also having trouble maintaining their physiques since the filming conditions and the food were both extremely harsh.
We were all dropped into, Thailand, and we had to survive. So nobody had any idea of what the hell was going on.
The two main stars also came to set with their own struggles. Raul Julia, sadly, unbeknownst to pretty much everyone on set, was battling stomach cancer during production. Van Damme, on the other hand, in layman's terms, was flying on cocaine pretty much at all times. During the early 90s, JCVD reportedly had a $10,000 a week coke habit, which was very active during Street Fighter.
Guile, that's me, Guile. I'm like a very strong, macho.
The studio even assigned Van Damme a wrangler who was supposed to keep him in check, and instead would go out partying with Jean-Claude. I mean, sounds kind of fun. He would also take trips away from set to Hong Kong, where he would vanish for days or call in sick to set, and there was plenty of he'll come out of his trailer when he wants to going on. Oh, and he was also having an affair during production with Kylie Minogue, which is even more crazy given that his wife at the time is in the movie. All of the Van Damme delays put the movie behind schedule by days to even weeks. D'Souza would compensate for the delays by using an old John Ford trick, which was ripping out a page of the script. And it shows. A lot was ripped out from the script during filming for a whole slew of reasons. There was supposed to be this big helicopter assault on Bison's fortress, but that had to be scrapped due to potential mass panic.
And they came back to us and they said, we are concerned that if we let you film this helicopter sequence, it is going to cause panic and rumors that like things are completely out of control, that a whole squadron of helicopters is flying over the city and so forth, and flying over the area. So we don't want to do that. You can't do the helicopter thing.
Thailand had been going through a series of coups in the early 90s, so any scenes involving fake military helicopters taking to the sky were reasonably tossed out to keep civilians from freaking the f*** out.
An attack from the air is impossible.
Threats of a possible coup during production led to main roads being shut down, so they had to rely on traveling by boat, at night in some situations, to filming locations which may or may not have electricity. They also had to fix all of the wardrobe for the Allied Nations characters because the United Nations did not want to be associated with this movie. I wonder why.
Nonetheless, at the very, very last minute, we were already in Thailand. We had to repaint everything and make it the Allied Nations instead of the United Nations.
With constant script pages being torn out left and right, it wasn't easy for the cast to follow along with what their characters were actually supposed to be doing in the film, especially when the production moved to Australia and 9 days worth of reshoots had to happen in way less than 9 days. There's a quote from Rashan Seth, the veteran actor who played Dalsim, talking about how he was completely confused by everything happening with his character. I didn't know the character, I didn't know the video game, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was supposed to be a mad scientist, I thought. What sort of science am I supposed to be doing? And what am I mad about? There's a scene where my character has to pull out his hair in anger. They spent all day fitting me with a skull cap so I could literally pull my hair out. I just stopped thinking, they just told me what to do, and I followed instructions. Same goes for Robert Maman, the actor who played Blanca in Close-Ups. I say close-ups because nobody told him that he was going to be replaced with a body double in wide shots until he met said body double at a cast party. In spite of everything and having to chop the film to ribbons to earn itself a PG-13 rating, Street Fighter managed to make its premiere date of Christmas 1994. Despite the very odd release date, Street Fighter was a hit, at least by box office standards. It made its budget back domestically and would earn $66 million at the international box office, which was a huge relief for the studio since Mario Bros. Bombed so horribly the year before. But like the Mario Brothers movie, Street Fighter was decimated by critics. Stephen Holden of the New York Times called it, quote, a dreary, overstuffed hodgepodge of poorly edited martial arts sequences and often unintelligible dialogue, end quote. Which is pretty much right on the money.
Any other new business?
Even though D'Souza is convinced that critics had their claws out for the film because video game movies were the new thing at the time.
A lot of the reviews we got that panned the movie said this movie is a video game and this shows the paucity of imagination in Hollywood, and they never could get past the fact that we had the horrible nativity of video game origins. I imagine this too will pass. The reviews we had, on the other hand, that liked the film would again comment on our bastard heritage and then say, despite the fact that this movie began as a video game. So the time will come, I imagine, when the source material will not be so pigeonholed.
So, with all that said, is Street Fighter bad? Objectively, yes, of course. I have a deep love for this movie since I was the right age at the right time and was and still am a big fan of Street Fighter. But yeah, the whole thing's a mess. I think a big part of it being that Capcom bet on the wrong horse right out the gate. D'Souza obviously wanted to make a James Bond type of movie. He makes that very clear in the film's commentary.
Bison and his plan to take on the whole world if necessary is very much in the spirit of a James Bond villain. I'm not sure why heroes always understand how the machinery works and when they break into the bad guy's headquarters, but going back to James Bond, they always do.
That was never going to work. Every bad video game movie was a victim of this kind of thinking when being adapted to the big screen. Taking something simple like Street Fighter and trying to mold it into a shape of something entirely different and overly complicated never works. Like, why is the Street Fighter movie an homage to Guns of Navarone that also has multiple Good Morning Vietnam references in it?
Good morning, Shadaloo.
The Mortal Kombat movie understood this entirely, and that's kind of why it rules. It's a movie about a fighting tournament with a bunch of weirdos. It probably also helped that they cast people with actual martial arts backgrounds too. Shout out WMAC Masters. By removing the tournament element of the film, characters had to be assigned weird secondary professions to make sure that they were able to slide into the movie like big muscly square pegs in round holes. E Honda and Balrog are Chun-Li's news team for whatever reason. Ken and Ryu are white hat arms dealers who are trying to sell Nerf guns to Sagat. Dalsim is a scientist under Bison's command, along with Zangief and DJ. Blanca is a genetically mutated super soldier being radicalized by History Channel because it sounds like D'Souza had no clue why Blanca was green with orange hair.
I really wasn't thrilled with the orange hair, but I inherited that from the video game. You know, millions of kids around the world knew he had orange hair in his mutated Blanca state.
It's because he was on a plane crash that went down in the jungle. That's where he grew up, Steven. Jesus, read a book. There's also so much that was cut out of this movie to such a distracting degree, it's amazing that it's any level of coherent. There were scenes where Chun-Li and her big boys steal explosives from Bison, and Chun-Li shows off her fighting skills before the end of the second act. That was left on the cutting room floor. T-Hawk randomly has a band-aid on his forehead throughout the movie, which is never addressed. They tried to explain Guile's accent as being Cajun, which also didn't make the final cut.
Somehow the dialogue about him being Louisiana fell out of the movie.
John Woo also used the Cajun excuse in Hard Target, which is a way better Van Damme movie. There's also the scene where Guile fakes his own death during a prison escape and literally pretends to be dead in a morgue for presumably hours just to surprise Chun-Li. A weird thing for him to do considering that there's a literal ticking clock in the movie. Dalsim gets covered in Surge at one point and starts pulling out all of his hair in a scene that was also cut from the movie, which explains why he's suddenly bald at the end of the film. D'Souza also makes reference to the idea of a sequel in the works.
The acute observer will notice that Roshan Set, the scientist here, is getting drenched with the mutating juice. That will pay off in the sequel.
Which was definitely in consideration since the film has a post-credit scene where M. Bison punches through the rubble that he's buried under. That scene was removed from the theatrical cut to be respectful to Raul Julia, who sadly passed away shortly after filming. A really tremendous loss for so many reasons. One of them being that Raul Julia is the performance that makes this movie worth watching, or as Stephen D'Souza would call it.
And he's just delicious in the scene.
Probably because he was such an incredible actor, but for whatever reason, Raul Julia is so tuned to the proper frequency of this movie that is mostly just radio static otherwise.
Tell you what, after I've crushed my enemies, we'll see about getting you published. That should cheer you up.
Every line delivery from him is so funny and performed with complete sincerity on an almost Shakespearean level. It's great.
You come here prepared to fight a madman, and instead you found a god?
Give me an Abbott and Costello movie with just DJ and M. Bison.
That's great news, General. Congratulations.
On the contrary, I mourn.
Okay.
And of course, there's his big monologue to Chun-Li.
The day Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Mwah! Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The whole movie is peppered with some great one-liners, which is to be expected from the guy who wrote Die Hard. But it helps having actors like Ming-Na Wen and Wes Studi to deliver said one-liners.
Didn't anyone tell you there's a curfew?
In Shadaloo City, no one tells me anything.
There is a 7 p.m. curfew in Shadaloo City.
The movie also looks great. It was shot by cinematographer William Fraker, who was the DP on movies such as Rosemary's Baby, Bullet, and Tombstone. There's a now deleted tweet from 2015 where someone watched Street Fighter in black and white by accident and discovered it might be a masterpiece. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, this rocks and rolls. Even with all of its flaws, which there's a lot, I still find this movie charming and oddly comforting. Sure, in no way does it capture the essence of Street Fighter, mainly thanks to its major lack of fighting scenes and a total ignorance of the game's lore.
Mutated blank estate.
But if it's been a minute since you've taken a trip to Shadaloo, why not give this a spin? I really think there's some stuff to love in here. It's definitely better than The Legend of Chun-Li.
His name's Bison. I've tracked him through 11 major cities on 4 continents and never come close, not once.
But tell me, what do you think? Are you a Street Fighter defender? What's your favorite video game movie of all time? And what infamous movie flop would you want a deeper dive into? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Give that like button a hit if you'd be so kind, and make sure to keep it glued to Nerdist.com. Send us out on a high note, Raul.
Game over!
Fantastic.